The parts of Queens are now priority zones for vaccine distribution.
Specific neighborhoods in Queens, like Richmond Hill, South Ozone Park, have some of the city's highest infection rates. The city expanding the number of vaccine sites in Queens. And tonight, Queens Borough President Donovan Richard hosting a vaccine town hall to spread the word. Borough President Richards now joining us live to talk to us about this and more. Good morning to you. How you doing?
Good morning, Dan. Great to see you.
So, Mr. Richards, let me begin with this because Queens leaders have been really sounding the alarm, yourself included, about the vaccine disparities. We saw that report that came out last week that talked about the vaccine disparities and specifically communities of color. Did that surprise you to see that white folks were getting the vaccine more than black and brown communities? And how do you fix that?
No, it didn't surprise me one bit. When we looked at, remember when I was on a few months ago, we were talking about testing sites and how the city had neglected to really ensure communities that were hit hardest during the pandemic had access. So this really lies at the city's doorstep, and the mayor has to do better at ensuring that we're reaching these communities sooner. You know, one of the reasons we obviously have seen these disparities as well is because many of the places and locations geographically that the city has laid out for testing are not in the communities that were hardest hit. So it's a recipe for failure. And, you know, I was happy to stand with Richmond Hill leaders in last week and to push the mayor and the city to ensure that there's more vaccination sites and testing going on in these communities.
Well, let me ask you this. Queens still has a lot of COVID hotspots, right? But we're many, many months into this. Why is that, and what can it be attributed to?
Well, one of the things I always would say is people have to take responsibility. You know, the onus is on us to make sure we're adhering to the rules of social distancing, wearing our mask, avoiding large gatherings. So I'll start with that. But two, these are many of the communities, when you look at where testing is mapped right now, these are the places where there's not access to a lot of testing. So what you do have is a lot of people roaming around asymptomatic, possibly with no symptoms,
right,
and unfortunately spreading this deadly virus. So, you know, we've seen testing ramp up in many of these pockets of the community, but it also takes the city getting out there and doing education as well, ensuring that, you know, with their passing out pamphlets, making sure that there's access to information for immigrant communities,
right,
specifically, and that they're using cultural competency in their outreach.
Let me ask you this, because Citi Field was supposed to serve as one of the mega vaccination sites. Obviously, it was postponed because there was a lack of vaccine supplies. But now we got word that Yankee Stadium is going to open tomorrow. Any word on when Citi Field is actually going to open to serve Queens residents?
Well, we have not got word as of yet. You know, I was saddened to see the Yankees are opening up before the Mets, and I want to give the New York Mets a lot of credit because they stepped up to the plate very early on, and that was certainly a home run for Queens. So, you know, we're calling on the city, you know, especially Queens was the epicenter. Let's be clear, the epicenter of the epicenter. We should be prioritized. And the residents cannot wait here for vaccination. We need to make sure that, yes, Met Stadium is a location, but that there's also a lot of vaccination.
There seems to be a communication issue, right? Because if there's a lack of vaccine supply and Citi Field can't open, but now the Yankee Stadium is opening, so there is the vaccine supply, what's the communication breakdown there?
Well, the communication breakdown goes back to the Trump administration. Let's start with them. But now we know that the Biden administration is certainly opening up, sending a lot more vaccines to states like New York. So we need to ensure that Met Stadium in Queens is not playing second fiddle to anyone. We want to make sure everyone gets vaccinated. But Queens, let me remind people, was the epicenter of the epicenter. And we need a vaccination. We need vaccination immediately.
But you're also needing to get out the information. You're hosting a vaccine town hall tonight. In fact, will you have information about this new vaccine, these sites that are going to be open for residents? And what are you trying to still dispel within the community? Because we talk about this all the time. You think the word would start to get out?
Yeah, well, tonight is about that. And let me be clear, for communities of color, you know, when we look at this country, there's always been a history with experimentation. So when you think about the Tuskegee experiment, you know, these are things that live on in communities of color in our minds and in our hearts. And we know that our communities were impacted by these things. So it's really about making sure that validators are out there, that we're spreading the information, the facts, not the false information we heard. You're not going to turn green if you take this vaccine. So it's about spreading that information and letting people know that we're going to be on the front lines taking this vaccine as well.
You're going to get the vaccine yourself?
Oh, absolutely. We don't lead from the rear. We lead from the front in Queens. And I can assure you a lot of community leaders and leaders across Queens are ready to step up to stress the importance of getting this vaccination so that we can get back to some level of normalcy.
Understood. Queens Borough President Donovan Richard, thank you for being here this morning. Appreciate your time.
Thank you.
And Queens
get a roach for my wife for Valentine's Day.
Yeah, good luck with that.
Tell her we sent you. Bronx Zoo.
Nothing says
Bronx Zoo.
love
Best
like a
$15 she'll spend, I'm telling you. I got one for Betty. She never checks in on it. Best $15.
Exactly. Stay far
I'll
away.
be single the next time I'm on it.
Exactly.
All right. Thank you very much, Borough President. By the way, Queens residents, be sure to join that virtual town hall on the vaccines tonight. It is at 6 p.m. We're going to have the information on pix11.com as well.